Greetings, poetry lovers, and welcome to the 2020 Poetryspective Retro Slam. The slam where entrants recite the workings of other poets who inspire them. Brought to you from the House of Schketz and still sponsored by Pride of our Footscray Community Bar. My name is Lish, MC, and we have many things to cover tonight. The first being this award, the Discotini. The person who recites the best two poems by the same author shall win this glorious disco ball atop a martini glass frosted with glitter and the pretty little marble just in there. Yes, so it'll be very exciting to see who wins this. And this year we also have the new People's Choice Award. Oh, here it is, the People's Choice Award, the disco ship sailing a world of words. And of course you can vote for the People's Choice Award on the Poetryspective page in a poll. So during the first round, consider this and pick your favourite. Don't think about judges and what the judges have thought. It is what the people prefer. And so that poll will be open until 8 p.m. tomorrow night, Wednesday, and I shall be announcing the winner at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night. So be sure to cast your votes, and it's going to be wonderful. Moving on now to the first heat. But before we begin the first heat, I would like to recite a poem by Eric Beach. I'd like to multicultural your acquaintance by Eric Beach. I want to be your bagel, baby. Gyros, souvlaki too. How about a little spanakopita? I want a croissant with a meat pie. I don't want a blue with you, Roo. I want a falafel or Irish stew. I want a bolognese or borscht. Don't be a sauerkraut, mate. I want to be a palooka, not a malacca. Haven't seen you, gelati. You spaghetti where I live. How come I never zucchini you anymore? You did a pit with me, old cucumber, pie cart. How about a roll goblet of pork pie down the Frogger Toad? Where's my broad bean? How's your corn cob? Capsicum, easy go. I dipped my tzatziki. Bye-bye, bullabees. Tara masalata for just one Turkish delight. Paella, cannelloni, needs sweetbreads. Must have SOH, sense of hummus. Plenty more fettuccine, see you lasagna. Don't come knocking at my door, walking out on our marinara out of sheer capricciosa. Don't calamari me, mate. I'll give you a squid ring. And now, here is our first entry in the Retro Slam, Brendan Bonsack.
Once, the world was perfect, and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiky head, and once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. We destroyed the world we'd been given, for inspiration, for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hand. And there we were, right back where we started, bumping into each other in the dark. Now we had no place to live, since we didn't know how to live with each other. And then One of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans, and the children of those clans, and their children, and their children, all the way through time, to now, to this morning light, to you.
Thank you, Brendan Bodzak. Your recital of Joy Harjo's poem just now was truly beautiful. And moving on, next in our first heat is Colin Clark.
It's the first book you owned, a careful pile of fraying pieces. You place your name in it proudly, in shaky biro ball and stick script, in modified cursive, in the stamp your friend made for you, in purple ink, in earnest. It absorbs the oil from the pores of your fingertips, rests beside you on the sheets, inhaling your breath while you sleep. This book brings back the queasy joy, the circled eyes of days spent in the cool dim inside, summer sun through the Venetians, laying dazzling bars on the wall. You read it on the beach. Years later, it will gently shower you with sand. This book will distract you as you wait for the bad news, ground your rootless heart in something solid. It will teach you new words for the world. Maybe it will see you when no one else has. This book contains secrets and keys. It reconnects the severed pieces. Perhaps it will draw tears through the dry well of your throat. Your tears blur the words, then spot the pages. You put it down, laughing helplessly. Your indignation hurls it to the wall. You burn it. It's the book inscribed in a hand as familiar as your own. The new book by a favourite author, saved for this moment of peace and a good cup of tea. It swallows you whole. It stops the clocks. It spits you up exactly where you were, not as you were. It's the unnecessary welcome weight in your backpack, the book you take sips of, prolonging the pleasure, the one you'd wish for years that you'd written. It's the book you bought for a luscious cover, the only book you ever stole. You'd finish it, close it, thump it gently onto the table. You'd allow its echoes to recede until you can come back to it and not hear the words before it speaks. You touch it with affection, lightly on the spine as you're passing. It's a dictionary, plump with surprises, I told you so's. You hold it open at the places you have fingers for, following a snaking trail of accident and meaning. You stand in the bookshop, turning its weight in your hands, knowing it means a lean and well-read week ahead. This book will be lent out, lost, regretted always. You read it over and over, your mind taking in its familiar shapes as a palm caresses a lover's thigh, knowing it more thoroughly each time. You sleep with it held to your heart, astounded, grateful.
Thank you, Colin Clark. I do believe Trisha Dearborn would delight in your performance. And now we have our next entrant, Mr. Tim Evans.
This is for the beats and those who worship them. Train tracks in the industrial district, bits of steel interlocking because interwoven is too soft a word in both connotation and vocalized sound. Click, 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 clock, trains running on the ticking of timekeepers' fevered dreams of steel, of grit, of time, of speed. Tick tock, more luck, whoops, went a little bit Ginsberg there. drum beats, I mean clock beats, I mean the beats, I mean fuck Kerouac, man. Long days on the road, fucking women and bragging about fucking women. And fuck people who think fucking lots of women is something to brag about. Keeping count of all the cunts they've been in, beat down women generation, am I right? Poets then and poets now, praise for tying them to those bed slats, I mean train tracks, like those films, silent as they wish their women would be. But hail. Hail to Diane de Prima, for she is the high priestess of your otherwise misogynistic movement of men. She fucked you but didn't brag about it. She had your babies instead. Wow, man, oh wow, she said. The day you put her down, she took her comb and her 2 books and cut, and that was that, across the country with all 5 babies on her hips, staring down college kids and microphones. She was never tied to those train tracks, because how do you tie down an ocean? She bore the brunt of your sexual revolution and still succeeded. Raised your babies on her poetry and still succeeded. Fuck Kerouac and Cassidy, fuck Ginsberg and Burroughs and Ferlinghetti, fuck the male poets who idolized them without thinking to critique them. Give me De Prima, give me Kiger, give me Cohen, give me Kendall, give me Jones, give me Vega, give me the women of this generation that men have sworn to forget. This is for the beats and those who worship them.
Thank you, Tim Evans. You really did capture the rhythm of Ariel Cottingham's poem, and I'm sure that if she was watching, there would be a broad smile appearing on that gorgeous face of hers. And next in our first heat is Mr. Michael Reynolds.
My handwriting is not calligraphic, not following the rules of beauty. Words stagger about, reeling as if clobbered on the jaw. But you, the descendant, my textual critic, following on the heels of the past, take stock of those gales your ancestor got caught in. He walked on a pugnacious coastal freighter, a bit arrogant, but you should see beyond the pitched handwriting, not only the author's traits. Your ancestor wrote while tossed about, not kept too warm by squalls, habitually like having a pack of his own cigarettes. Of course, far off, we made our way courageously. But it's hard to write a line when your head is smashed with relish against the bulkhead. Risking skin and bones, it's tough to sing a claim when what you see compels you not to praise, but only to throw up. When churning water strangles motors and a wave's curl is aimed at your forehead, then smudges are better than flourishes. They're black, but true. Here, fingers simply grew numb. Here, the swell slyly tormented. Here, the pen jerked with uncertainty away from some mean shoal. But through all the clumsiness, through the clutches of awkwardness, an idea breaks through the way of freighter on the Lena, breaks through to the Arctic shore. Then, descendant, be slow to curse the style. Don't judge an ancestor severely. And even in the handwriting of the poet, find a solution in the enigma of time.
Ah, an excellent reading of Yevgeny Yevtushenko by Michael Reynolds. Thank you very much. And moving on to our next contestant, Alex Gilday.
You could travel up the Blue Nile with your finger, tracing the route while Mrs. Tilsher chanted the scenery. Tana, Ethiopia, Khartoum, Aswan. That for an hour, then a skittle of milk, and the chalky pyramids rubbed into dust. A window opened with a long pole. The laugh of a bell swung by a running child. This was better than home. Enthralling books. The classroom glowed like a sweet shop. Sugar paper, coloured shapes. Brady and Hindley faded like the faint, uneasy smudge of a mistake. Mrs. Tilsher loved you. Some mornings you found she'd left a good gold star by your name, the scent of a pencil slowly, carefully shaved, a xylophone's nonsense heard from another form. Over the Easter term, the inky tadpoles changed from commas into exclamation marks. 3 frogs hopped in the playground, freed by a dunce, followed by a line of kids jumping and croaking away from the lunch queue. A rough boy told you how you were born. You kicked him, but stared at your parents, appalled when you got back home. That feverish July, the air tasted of electricity. A tangible alarm made you always untidy, hot, fractious under the heavy, sexy sky. You asked her how you were born, and Mrs. Tilsher smiled, then turned away. Reports were handed out. You ran through the gates, impatient to be grown as the sky split open into a thunderstorm.
That was a lovely reading of Carol Ann Duffy's poem from you, Alex Gilday. And you may have noticed I'm quite partial to ships too. And moving on to our next contestant, hands together for Vicky Mealings.
The Lark and the Freedom Fighter. My grandfather once said that the imprisonment of the lark is a crime of the greatest cruelty because the lark is one of the greatest symbols of freedom and happiness. He often spoke of the spirit of the lark relating to the story of a man who incarcerated one of his loved friends in a small cage. The lark, having suffered the loss of her liberty, no longer sang her little heart out. She no longer had anything to be happy about. The man who had committed this atrocity demanded that the lark do as he wished, that she was to sing her heart out, to comply to his wishes and change herself to suit his pleasure or benefit. The lark refused, and the man became angry and violent. He pressured the lark to sing, but inevitably he received no result. So he took more drastic steps. He covered the cage in a black cloth, depriving the bird of sunlight. He starved her and left her to rot in a dirty cage, but the bird refused to yield. So the man murdered her. As my grandfather stated, the bird had spirit, the spirit of freedom and resistance. She longed to be free and died before she would conform to the tyrant who tried to change her with torture and imprisonment. This brings me directly to my own situation. I feel I have something in common with that poor bird. I am a political prisoner, a freedom fighter. Like the bird, I too have fought for my freedom, not only in captivity where I now languish, but also while on the outside where my country is held captive. I have been captured and imprisoned, but like the lark, I too have seen the outside of the wire cage. I am now in H Block where I refuse to change to suit the people who oppress, torture and imprison me and who wish to dehumanize me. I have been stripped of my clothes and locked in a dirty, empty cell where I have been starved, beaten and tortured. While I remain alive, I remain what I am, a political prisoner. I dare not conclude without finishing my grandfather's story. I once asked him what happened to the wicked man who imprisoned, tortured and murdered the lark. Son, he said. One day he caught himself on one of his own traps, and no one would help him. His own people scorned him and turned their backs on him. He grew weaker and weaker, until finally he died upon the land which he had marred with such blood. The birds came and extracted their revenge by picking his eyes out, and the larks sang like they never sang before.
Thank you, Vicky Mealings. Wow, such an emotive reading of Bobby Sands. I enjoyed that immensely. And our next competitor in the first round is Helen Bradwell.
Thinking the room empty. I am being told a long story of a chain of coincidences. A friend, losing her way in the desert, walks out of dry Alice Springs riverbed into 30,000 miles, a flat, ruled horizon, blazing heat, waterless saltbush. She finds a fence and walks along it. A sign tells her she's reached a rifle range, and in the distance the mirage shimmer of a tin shed. She is thirsty, and she trespasses, climbs through the fence, walks expecting rifle fire, forces the door. In the dimness, she finds nothing but a big empty crate, an abandoned, waiting silence. She has one chance, and she sees it. She takes the crate outside, stands it on end, climbs it, and pulls herself onto the roof of the shed. Turning in a slow 360 degrees, she catches sight of the low mountain range she recognizes as north, elevated over the line of the horizon. The direction back to town. Sets off, swallowing dust, weak with relief. The point of the story is yet to come, the birth of her daughter brought about by a lift. Once she found the road back to town from a stranger she flagged down, and so forth. I listen, but my mind stays lingering in the gloom with that crate and her presence of mind, stilling panic, recognizing it for what it was. I wonder how many times I have broken some lock, searched hastily and withdrawn, thinking the room empty, overlooked the disguised and waiting gift, missed the mountain. I wonder what my stunted sightline has failed to notice, what path home I have abandoned.
Thank you, Helen Bradwell. It is always a treat to hear any of Kate Kennedy's poems. That was very enjoyable. And moving on to our next contestant, Steve Smart.
You are my subject, I am your predicate, the fire of how it is for now. Sprawling at the table, glowering in the dark, you listen with detached retina to my verb-vowel sound, my gerund phrases, my bracketed asides and accidental quotes set too far down. From simple sentences I graduate to compound, complex, build a tower of etymology with words that we don't need, as if it were a subjunctive pun. I erect expectant libraries with walls of gender linguistics and plaster adjectives across the cracks. I talk of meanings rather than mean anything. I feel I have to fill the gaps. Revealing intentions of osmosis, I subjugate my tongue for you, but you won't pick up the speaking stick. Parasitic participles glows my subjudice invocation. When I admit my honesty, I can feel the cold seep through the floorboards. Through my entropic rendering, your silent hand appears, Obscure flowers camouflaging my need have become a dried arrangement. My speech sparsens. Only literal interpretations left. I'm careful not to modulate my tone. My words don't close around you. There is no meter in our sentences. The lack of a full stop is disconcerting. I red pen almost everything. I grow enigmas in the bathroom and only speak to change the sheets. You are my reason. I'm your maneuver. You do me.
Thank you, Steve Smart. Your recital of Sand on the Clouds poem truly moved me, and I believe Sandy herself would be very, very proud. And now our final reader in the first round here at the Poetryspective Retro Slam, Mr. Dave Munro.
I wonder if I've lived enough to have anything worth saying, if I've ever read enough erudite books, seen enough sunsets in far-flung places, if the wind has blown enough dirt into my nostrils. Do I have enough kitchen implements, used once and now catching on the lip of the third drawer down, begged enough times for my life, or for the end of life, collected enough accolades or broken seashells? Does wisdom grow with occasions cut or bled? Is it frequency, or perhaps the relevant measure is intensity, or identity, the person who did the cutting? Do I have enough old photographs, hidden in dusty drawbacks, enough abuse aimed and delivered through car windows? Have I drunk enough soup, beer or gin? Thrown up enough into strange doorways, staggered into smelly cabs with vaguely threatening strangers? Does it count if I've wandered the lovely streets with balloons tied to the edge of my gown? Does that count as having something worthwhile to say? Speaking of which, serviettes.
Thank you, Dave Munro, for that gorgeous reading of Waffle Iron Girl's poem. I know she will be thrilled when she sees you reading this tonight. And this, ladies and gentlemen, etc., etc., pets, cats, dogs, brings the first round of the Poetryspective Retro Slam to an end. The polls to vote for People's Choice Award to win this glorious ship sailing on a world of words is now open on the Poetryspective Facebook page, so be sure to go there and cast your vote for your favourite reading in the first round for the People's Choice Award. And now for a little bit of entertainment while our judges Matt O'Keefe, the Barney Schumer and Denise Chapman deliberate. And after that, the results for the second round. See you soon.
Hey friend, look over there, on that stage. It's Flipper. Flipper, the Poetryspective penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper. Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is he, if we think poetically. And we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there, onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, ever so kenning and gloss is he, Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lacuna when he spills beer. What's with the angry penguin, quoth Harry Loffrey, and we know Flipper leitmotif venue, flighting there underneath under the onomatopoeia sea. Hey, friend, look over there, on that stage. It's Flipper, Flipper the poetry penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of Our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is free, knows sonnets like he, and we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there under onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, ever so kenning and gloss is he. Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lament when he spills beer. Hey friend, look over there, on that stage. It's Flipper, Flipper the poetry penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of Our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is free, no sonnets like he, and we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there under onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, ever so kenning and gloss is he. Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lament when he spills beer. And you know Flipper once wrestled with dear old James Jackson, right there on that stage at Pride of Footscray. Hey friend, look over there on that stage. Flipper, Flipper the poetry spective penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of Our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is he if we think poetically. And we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, ever so kenning and gloss is he. Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lacuna when he spills beer. Let's not mention Sean O'Callaghan, who gave poor Flipper what for. He upset Flipper's fans. What did he do that for? Hey friend, look over there on that stage. Flipper, Flipper the poetry spective penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of Our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is he if we think poetically. And we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, ever so kenning and gloss is he. Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lament when he spills beer. Kendra Keller sang to Flipper on stage, dancing with him in her arms and embrace right there on that stage at Pride of Our Footscray. Hey friend, look over there on that stage. Flipper, Flipper the poetry spective penguin. You know, Flippers at Pride of Our Footscray Community Bar. We call him Flipper, Flipper, faster than rhyming. Haiku is he if we think poetically. And we know Flipper lives in a wonderful venue, flighting there onomatopoeia the sea. Everyone loves the king of the lyricry, Ever so kenning and gloss is he. Tropes he will do when poets appear, and how they lacuna when he spills beer.
And now, the judges have finished their deliberations, and it is time for the first round results. So, going through to the second round of the Poetryspective Retro Slam, in no particular order, is Dave Munro, Vicky Mealings, Colin Clark, Brendan Bonsack, and Steve Smart.
Hi everyone, my name's Matt, one of the judges. I'm the manager down at Protovale Footscray, and thanks to Lish and Colin for putting together an amazing event again for Retro Slam, and thanks for asking me to be a judge. It's a great honour, and it's just fabulous listening to all the entries. Really, really good group of performances, and I think between all of the poets, there was only one. There was a difference of one between my highest vote and my lowest vote for the first round. It was so close, and everything was so enjoyable. I'll just provide brief comments to each of the performances in round one now. Brendan with Once the World Was Perfect. Great choice for 2020, so appropriate. Really enjoyed the poem, and it was really well read. Typically, as you'd expect from Brendan. So thank you and well done, Brendan, on that. Colin Clark was next with This Book Will Change Your Life. This was just, Colin's got a great voice for spoken word, and he really reads things well, and that poem was a great choice as well. I think books are so important to probably anyone watching this or participating in this. Books are just such an amazing part of life, and this felt very personal and very relatable, and I think Colin did an exceptional job with that performance. Tim Evans, this poem fucking beats. Really a surprising poem. Like it starts one way and just ramps up at 1,000,000 miles an hour towards the end there. It's really well, it builds up nicely. It's well put together. It gets quite visceral in the end. It's a really interesting piece, and well read by Tim. That was really great to listen to, so thank you, Tim. Michael Reynolds, love seeing Michael perform. The poem was My Handwriting. Kind of made me feel better because my handwriting is terrible. I just thought it was a really rhythmical and enjoyable poem that Michael performed well. So thank you, Michael. Alex, How Many Sailors to Sail a Ship? Alex also has a beautiful voice and is a great reader, and I always enjoy Alex's work. The poem itself, really nice, very beautiful. Some of the phrasing and wordplay in it I found quite beautiful, and it really was quite a nostalgic poem that brought back a lot of familiar imagery, and I really enjoyed it, so thank you, Alex. Vicky, The Lark and the Freedom Fighter was Vicky's poem. This was just an exceptional piece. It was really well delivered by Vicky, and it just really spoke to me. It was pretty brutal at times, and it's a powerful metaphor for the compromise and cruelty in this world, and I just really took a lot from this piece and the performance, and it brought back to my mind a line from Midnight Oil, which is it's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. And this was a really savagely powerful poem, and I thank Vicky for the performance. Next was Helen Bradwell, Thinking the Room Empty was the poem. The name of the poem the whole concept behind the poem is very beautiful and deep. Always enjoy Helen's reading, and it's really a beautiful story about life. That poem, and you could listen to that often and get something out of it every time. It was a good performance of a good poem, and thanks, Helen. Steve Smart with I Love You, Babel. I actually liked the way Steve presented this. He's always got a unique look, Steve, and a way of presenting things. And I think it was really well presented and well read. Steve's obviously got a really nice voice, and it's a bit of a poet's poem. It's very, very clever, and it was well performed by Steve, and I thank Steve for that. And lastly, but not leastly, Dave Munro with the Waffle Iron Girl poem. This poem, I could have listened to Dave read this poem endlessly. It's a great piece of work. It felt like my mind had been invaded, and I think, again, for a lot of people watching this, I can imagine the themes and in that poem are very, very relatable, and it's just such a well-written poem, and it was nice to hear. It was kind of a really nice choice by Dave. Really, really good. So thank you, Dave, for that. You performed an amazing poem really, really well, so thank you for that, and can't wait to see what my fellow judges thought and who gets through to the next round. But they were all amazing pieces for mine, and the scores were very close, and that reflected that, and I just thank everyone again. See you in the next round.
So, the first poet to compete in the second round is Mr. Brendan Bonsack. Hooray!
We were dreaming, on an occupied island at the farthest edge of a trembling nation, when it went down. 2 towers rose up from the east island of commerce and touched the sky. Men walked on the moon. Oil was sucked dry by 2 brothers. Then it went down, swallowed by a fire dragon, by oil and fear, eaten whole. It was coming. We had been watching since the eve of the missionaries, in their long and solemn clothes, to see what would happen. We saw it, from the kitchen window over the sink, as we made coffee, cooked rice, and potatoes, enough for an army. We saw it all, as we changed the diapers and fed the babies. We saw it through the branches of the knowledgeable tree, through the snags of stars, through the sun and storms from our knees, as we bathed and washed the floors. The conference of birds warned us, as they flew over the destroyers in the harbour, left there from the first takeover. It was by their song and talk that we knew when to rise, when to look out the window, to the commotion going on, the magnetic field thrown off by grief. We heard it, the racket in every corner of the world. A hunger for war rose up in those who would steal to be president, to be king, to be emperor, to own the trees, the stones, and everything else that moved about the earth, or inside it, or above it. We knew it was coming, tasted the winds who gathered intelligence from each leaf and flower, from every mountain, sea and desert, from every prayer and song all over this tiny universe floating in the skies of infinite being. And then it was over, this world we had grown to love, for its sweet grasses, for the many-coloured horses and fishes, for the shimmering possibilities while dreaming. But then there were seeds to plant, and the babies who needed milk and comforting, and someone picked up a guitar or a ukulele from the rubble and began to sing about the light flutter, the kick beneath the skin of the earth. We felt there beneath us a warm animal a song being born between the legs of her. A poem.
Thank you, Brendan Bonzak, for yet another beautiful, heartfelt recital of Joy Harjo's poetry. And next in our second round is Mr. Colin Clark.
The cockroach is poised with a crumb between its claws. It chews appreciatively, considers the size of the crumb, then chews again. It's so absorbed it doesn't notice me entering the kitchen. So much for the notable survival skills of cockroaches. I said the cockroach is appreciative, and I heard you roll your eyes. Don't tell me other animals don't feel. I know what my eyes tell me. A woman I know once lifted a shoe to smash a cockroach. It was running away and turned and saw her, and it crouched, she said. It quailed. She could never kill another one. It looked at me, she said, and this is a woman of generous years and sound good sense. I've lived in eastern Sydney. I've seen cockroaches that would put Kafka to shame for size. I got so I could pick up a shoe and hit the big black shiny one in the corner of the ceiling on the other side of the room, one shot, no effort, on my way to the loo at 2 a.m. My first lover and I set up a house with furniture from a second-hand shop. You know the kind, the wooden lounge setting with cushions that lumped and fell between strung ropes. And we chased the small brown cockroaches and baygoned endlessly until we traced them to the second-hand fridge and bent back the rubber seals to see. I lived in a cockroach-conscious share house once, where every plate was cleanly rinsed and the washing up done several times a day. One night, I noticed them gathered on the fridge, cockroaches sucking earnestly at a stray bit of detergent froth. A friend in a bar in Fiji caught the subtle eye of a stunning lad across the room who looked, and her glances grew less subtle. And she tossed her head back and her hair over one shoulder and tried to look ravishing and demure as he approached to tell her that she had one of the large local cockroaches perched on the top of her head. A comedian on the radio spoke of actual experiments using cockroach muscle as a potential power for artificial limbs. The only problem being, he said, that when someone turned on the kitchen light, your artificial legs would scuttle you under the fridge. But that's exactly the point. If you were a cockroach, you would scuttle under the fridge. You'd cringe in fear at the threat of a splattered death. You'd relish the enormous crumb left by your thoughtful/careless tenant. And you'd sometimes be so engrossed in your own good luck that you'd fail to see the hulking being peering at you, then reaching for the implement. I caught it in the dustpan and tossed it out the window.
Ah, cockroaches! Thank you, Colin Clark, for that very funny and entertaining recital of Trisha Dearborn's poem. And next in our second round is Vicky Mealings.
The Rhythm of Time by Bobby Sands. There's an inner thing in every man. Do you know this thing, my friend? It has withstood the blows of 1,000,000 years and will do so till the end. It was born when time did not exist, and it grew up out of life. It cut down evil, strangling vines like a slashing, searing knife. It lit fires where fires were not, and burned the mind of man, tempering leadened hearts to steel. Bastille from the time that time began. It wept by the waters of Babylon, and when all men were a loss, it screeched in writhing agony and hung bleeding from the cross. It died in Rome by lion and sword, and in defiant cruel array, when the deathly word was Spartacus along the Appian way. It marched with what the tilers pour, and frightened lord and king, and it was emblazoned in their deathly stare as ever a living thing. It smiled in holy innocence before conquistadors of old, so meek and tame and unaware of the deathly power of gold. It burst forth through pitiful Paris streets and stormed the old Bastille, and marched upon the serpent's head and crushed it beneath its heel. It died in blood on buffalo plains and starved by moons of rain. Its heart was buried in wounded knee, but it will come to rise again. It screamed aloud by Kerry Lakes as it was knelt upon the ground, and it died in great defiance as they coldly shot it down. It is found in every light of hope. It knows no bounds nor space. It has risen in red and black and white. It is there in every race. It lies in the heart of heroes dead. It screams in tyrants' eyes. It has reached the peak of mountains high. It comes searing across the skies. It lights the dark of prison cell. It thunders forth its might. It is the undauntable thought, my friend, that thought that says, I'm right.
Thank you, Vicky Mealings. The way you read that Bobby Sands poem just now was wonderful. So, moving on to our next entrant, Steve Smart.
It's the great escape from poetry. Just one day off. We're not going out to any readings and we'll get Where Were You? But that's probably better than Late Again. And we're not visiting any poets, and we're not going to talk about poetry or poets or places where poetry is read or festivals we might organise or readings we might run. We're having a day off from poetry. And poets bitching about other poets, and poets getting pissed with other poets and giving each other bad advice and boasting and bullshitting, as poets do. We're having a day off from poetry. We're catching a train as far as one will go, to Cairns or maybe Perth, or anywhere you don't need so many clothes. And the rain, if there is any, is warm and like a next morning shower, rather than that cold rain that sits in your shoes and fucks your cigarette papers. We're having a day off from poetry. We're not going to sit by the sea and write wave poems about sex or skin poems about love. We're not going to write poems about poetry. We're not going to write poems at all. Not poems or prose or even words. We're not taking books or pens or any paper, and we're going to rip our train tickets so we can't write on the back of those. We're having a day off from poetry. And we're going to lie by a river with crocodiles in it. And you're going to lie on one bank and I'll lie on the other because you're a fucking poet.
We're all going on a poet holiday. I didn't really do that. Thank you, Steve Smart, for your fantabulous recital of Sandal McLeod's poem. And now we have our final contestant, the last penultimate reading for the 2020 Poetry Perspective Retro Slam, Mr. Dave Munro.
Lukewarm Nescafe. Breakfast was once a hasty affair, a formality to be gotten rid of daily, like mumbling, "How are ya?" to the half-disliked workmate encountered in the lift on the way to the 28th floor. Both of you smile wanly, drop your eyes to the ground as the doors slide open, exit stages right and left. Which is to say, a half of a muesli bar and a lukewarm Nescafe. Breakfast is now a daily dance. The egg yolk reaches saffron yellow at 3 minutes precisely. The coffee percolates until the kitchen smells like a cigarette the way you imagine it between the slender figures of a madman dame, instead of the way it really smells, dry and dirty. Rye sourdough baked the night before crackles under the tender avocado quarters bristling with black pepper. Oatmeal slumps into fruit and yogurt stands pert under a maple shower. Breakfast is now a wee ballet for two, a dance you led me into. Should the music ever stop, dear? Don't fret for me. I'll always have a half a muesli bar and lukewarm Nescafe to return to.
Thank you, Dave Munro, for yet another lovely reading of Waffle Iron Girls poetry, and thus concludes the second heat in the 2020 Poetry Perspective Retro Slam. And while our judges deliberate, we will have 2 videos to play for you of last year's winner and runner-up. Of course, the winner was the Barney Schumer, and the runner-up was Denise Chapman. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and also wait with anticipation for the results of the Retro Slam 2020.
If your friends want to play with water down there in the park, I don't care how hot it is, even if it gets to be 104 degrees. The moment they get out them plastic squirt guns and start filling them up at the fountain, you just run. Don't even stop to explain. You just run, turn round, and run away. Run home to me. Somebody passing by might think that's the real deal. Pointed there. Listen here. Black boys got shot for less. If your car break down, even in the middle of the motorway, just leave it right there. Baby, don't you flag nobody down for help. That thing ain't nothing. Just a lump of clever metal anyway. Oh, you love that car? You love it too much to let it go? Then just get your friends and you push it. You push it over to the side of the road. Don't you flag nobody down. Push it all the way home if you got to. It don't matter how your knees buckle or how people on the sidewalk look at you funny. Stairs don't kill. Did you hear me? Stairs don't kill. You hear me? Don't you ever flag no other car down. Just help for help. Don't you never flag no other car down. Black boys got shot for less. And I want you coming home every single time, baby. And if you're running home after playing with the water pistols in the park, or after leaving some car that just broke down on you, if you're ever running home and somebody yells, "Stop!" For the love of Jesus, child, just stop. Stop and just put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air. Get down on your knees. Don't make no sudden movements. Yes, sir. No, sir. Or better yet, yes, officer. No, officer. Yeah, even then, if you don't mean it. Even if he's got a gun pointed right at you, especially if he's got a gun pointing at you, baby. Don't you hear me? Don't you hear me now? I don't care how hot it is. Even if it's 104 degrees, you come back to me.
And the burning cross said, "Hey, boy, you ever see the cross snap, crackle, pop Rice Krispie into a bowl of flames?" I said, "You ever seen a cross burning?" Nah, this ain't no crucifix, I be crucifixion. This ain't black skin, this is brown boy bark, I bite, I burn black, crackle, pop. You know, I used to be a proud thing. When I was constructed, I thought they were gonna put me up in some church like my mama and my daddy. See, my pops was a pine and my mama was a redwood, and they crossed paths at Mount Joy Baptist Church in Jefferson County, Alabama. And they used to tell me that my great-great-great-great-granddaddy was an old rugged cross who lived on Calvary. And there was this man named Jesus that was killed on him. And ever since then, people have been looking to my folks as a sign of salvation, which brings us here. To the front yard of Reverend Robert Hughes, July 1959. You know, I didn't want to be burned like this. They told me the Reverend was a good man with good intentions. I thought they would hang me up in his church, but the white men in white hoods who constructed me, they don't hang crosses, no. They hang the bodies of poor colored folks on my cousin trees who wish their limbs weren't so strong, wish their limbs would just snap under the weight of unwanted passengers instead of being crooked caskets carrying them closer to God. We don't call my cousin trees killers, no, we call them cursed couriers, forced to bear the burden of strange fruit, forced to beckon forth unwanted burials. You know, sometimes I think it better to be burned. I just die up here, slowly. I strike fear into all who see I be the ultimate contradiction, a raisin in the sun, a dream deferred, a sign of salvation, yet a symbol that will never come, the brightest light in the darkest circumstances, a burning cross. Big black boy watching white supremacists burn his body, his whole being to the ground. You know, the harder we fight for freedom, the more of my sibling crosses they burn in the front yards of desegregated schools and well-meaning individuals. You know what will become of me when the fire has had its fill? Some of me will become ash. I will seep into the soil as my family mourns over my charred remains still. Some of me will become smoke. I will cling to everybody who ever knew me, hoping to remain in their memories still. Some of me will become heat. And like heat, I will rise. I will rise like that man they said they killed on my great-great-great-granddaddy. You know, they say after 3 days he rose from the dead. And like him, like heat, I will rise. I will rise to the heavens in all my glory. And I just hope that y'all will tell my story.
Hello again. And now it is time for the results. Our judges have finished their deliberations, but before I announce the results of the 2020 Poetryspective Retro Slam, I would like to thank all our entrants for taking the time to record videos and send them in. It has been a very different way to run the Retro Slam, as you know, and I appreciate that very much, because without you guys, we wouldn't have it, would we? Now, the results. In third place, for his very entertaining and funny recitals of Trisha Dearborn, This Book Will Change Your Life, and Consider the Cockroach, Colin Clark. Yay! Colin shall be receiving a certificate and, of course, a feature next year. And our second place in the 2020 Poetryspective Retro Slam, for his gorgeous readings of Sandon McLeod's poetry, I Love You Babble, and Poets Holiday, Steve Smart. Hooray! Huzzah! And of course, Steve Smart will also be receiving a very special certificate and a feature next year. And now, for the final announcement, the winner of the gorgeous Discotini, crafted with my own 2 hands, for his beautiful, heartfelt recitals of Joy Harjo's poetry, Once the World Was Perfect, and When the World as We Knew It Ended, is Brendan Bonsack. Woohoo! Congratulations to you, Brendan Bonsack. This gorgeous Discotini shall be yours, is yours, and I will be in touch with you about its delivery, or meeting up with you so that you may hold it in victory. Absolutely wonderful. Now, don't forget to cast your votes for our People's Choice Award, the Disco Ship. That's right. Polls are open now and will be open until 8 p.m. tomorrow night, and the announcement will be at 9 p.m. Here on the YouTube channel as well as online.
Hey folks, Tabani here. On behalf of the judges, I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you for all your performances. They were absolutely phenomenal. You did not make it easy for us to pick a winner for the Retro Slam, but everyone did an absolutely fantastic job. It's always difficult to perform your own pieces and to be able to translate the emotive value of someone else's piece as brilliantly as you all did is something to definitely be commended. We as the judges really enjoyed listening to your recitations, and it was fantastic. Like, thank you. As the judges, we are grateful for all that you have shared with us. So thank you.
Hello, Denise Chapman here, and I am so thrilled to have been able to have the opportunity to view some incredible poetry this year. And it was really an honor to review all of the amazing slam poets. Just a little bit of a share. Brendan, oh my goodness, so beautifully emotive. I felt every bit of energy that you shared in every syllable. It was just, oh, lovely. It spoke to my heart. And oh my goodness, Colin, you are so witty and funny. Everything that you said, it felt like you were just jumping on sunshine and just, it was this playful, joyful zing in every word that you shared. And who else do we, Vicky, oh, you are so deep. Oh, my heart just came out and said, girl, did you just hear that? And I was like, It was so deep. And Steve, oh, intriguing poem, so intriguing presentation of so much. And it was straight to folks who love poetry. You were speaking to your audience in a beautiful way. I was sold. And Dave, oh, such a lovely reading. Oh my goodness, such a soft and encouraging sharing of beauty. Well, I just want to thank you all so much. Leash, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm going to pass it on to you. Congratulations to everyone.
Thank you, judges. And that just about wraps it up for tonight. Congratulations again to all our entrants, and of course, and especially our 3 place getters, Colin Clark, Steve Smart, Brendan Bonzak, the winner of this fine Discotini. Congratulations again, Brendan Bonzak. And thank you to all of our viewers, and again, do not forget to vote for your favourite in the People's Choice Awards. Polls will be open until 8 p.m. tomorrow night on the Poetryspective page on Facebook, and shall be announced here at 9 p.m. as well as online. So look out for that. Adios. See you in a fortnight. This is Leash, signing off.